Begin tonight with how we got here. And by here, in this case, I mean here. What you're looking at right next to me here is what happened for nearly 3 straight hours on the Senate floor today. A Senate clerk reading a 767-page amendment to the health reform bill out loud, word for painstaking word, grinding Senate business to a halt. It was the latest anti-health reform delay tactic, this one deployed by Republican Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. 2 long hours and 43 long minutes later, after 139 pages had already been read aloud, the sponsor of the amendment that was being read, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, withdrew it. And in doing so, he made no effort to hide his disgust.
We've got 2 wars. We got global warming. We have a $12 trillion national debt. And the best the Republicans can do is trying to bring the United States government to a halt by forcing a reading of a 700-page amendment. That is an outrage. People can have honest disagreements, but in this moment of crisis, it is wrong to bring the United States government to a halt.
The Republican anti-health reform strategy of delay, 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 delay is one that they're now openly bragging about. Republican Senator Jim DeMint tweeting about today's Senate floor stunt, quote, "If Reid won't slow down this debate, we will do it for him." Apparently dissatisfied with just being able to vote against health reform, Republican tactics against it are getting, frankly, more radical. Since the big read the 700-page bill stunt failed today, after Senator Sanders withdrew that amendment, Republicans moved on to step 2, I guess. As we speak, Republican Senators Jim DeMint and Sam Brownback and Republican members of Congress Michelle Bachmann and Randy Forbes are taking part in a prayer cast. So they're calling it a prayer cast to stop health reform. It is a prayer cast against what they're calling the government takeover of health care. As advertised, quote, "During the webcast, you will hear the latest on the threats to the God-given right to human life through government funding of abortions, our health from rationing, our family finances from higher taxes, and our general freedom posed by the government plan to take over healthcare." Speaking at the anti-health reform prayer cast alongside these Republican members of Congress are a whole host of figures from the religious right. Billed, for example, just above the Honorable Sam Brownback is a man named Lou Engle. Lou Engle isn't a household name, but you may have heard of him as the founder and president of a group called The Call to Conscience. The Call to Conscience describes itself as a movement to bring holiness and purity back to America.
Have the whole world pray for this, which is going on today and in California, because what happens in California will release a spirit that is more demonic than Islam, a spirit of lawlessness and anarchy, and a sexual insanity will be unleashed into the earth. We beg you, pray for California elections. Pray that God would break in with yes on 8.
Sexual insanity. Anti-health reform event tonight featuring Senator Brownback, Senator DeMint, and that guy, Lou Engle, anti-gay rights preacher. But Lou Engle is not the only one on the bill tonight who America should probably get to know. Another speaker during tonight's Republican headlined anti-health reform prayer cast, he's actually billed right beneath the Honorable Michelle Bachmann, is a bishop named Harry Jackson. Harry Jackson is the pastor of a Maryland church. He's been at the forefront of the opposition to gay marriage initiatives. According to Pastor Jackson, gay rights must be opposed because gay people are inspired by the devil, saying, quote, "Gays have been at the helm of a fourfold strategy for years, but the wisdom behind their spiritual, cultural, political, and generational tactics is clearly satanic." Harry Jackson and Lou Engle speaking tonight alongside Republican Senators Jim DeMint and Sam Brownback and Republican Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann and Congressman Randy Forbes of Virginia. I am guessing that the anti-gay stuff does not necessarily bother these Republican politicians. But Lou Engle, at least, is known for one other thing that might be a political bother to the Republican anti-health reform forces that have sided with him now. Lou Engle is known for encouraging acts of Christian martyrdom. Here's Mr. Engle waxing poetic about martyrdom at an event that was just last November.
Even under martyrdom, God, give me the grace. Fasting, 12 hours of prayer. There's some seeds of martyrdom. Days are coming when we're going to have to risk our lives to stand
So great is the need for Christian martyrdom on the specific issue of abortion, according to Pastor Engel, that he says it may be cause for a second American Civil War.
600,000 men died on the battlefields of America, and if God required it for slavery, what will it mean if God requires it for America, for the bloodshed of 50 million babies?
Yeah, can't we just please get some bloodshed in the abortion debate in this country, people? Can't we? The pastor calling for a second American Civil War, for American Christians to be martyred against abortion, headlining tonight's anti-health reform event with 2 serving Republican U.S. senators and 2 serving Republican members of Congress. If this is the next step in the Republican opposition to health reform, what's the step after this? Joining us now is Mark McKinnon, Republican strategist who has advised the campaigns of John McCain and George W. Bush. He's vice chairman of public strategies. He's also a contributor to the Daily Beast, where he has just posted his year-end rundown of who to watch for the Republican nomination in 2012. Lou Engle not on your list, I'm guessing.
Well, I have to put him on the watch list now.
I know what those kind of watch lists are about. What are the political calculations, Mark, for Senator Brownback, for example, these 2 Republican members of Congress, for them to associate with a Lou Engle, to them to not only associate themselves with him, but to associate him with the fight against health reform?
Well, I think a lot of what we're seeing is that the Republican brand itself has been badly damaged, and yet there's a large swath, a majority of the country that still see themselves as conservative. So a lot of elected officials in the Republican Party are looking for a place to align themselves where they can gain more credibility. So increasingly we're seeing these sorts of, some of the people that you mentioned tonight, trying to align themselves in order to get media and attention in a forum that gives them greater credibility than they can with the traditional Republican brand.
And these, and you're saying that, like Lou Engle, for example, he's trying to get credibility by associating himself with these Republicans, or vice versa?
Well, it's vice versa, and that's what's interesting. I think, for example, a lot of the Republicans are trying to align themselves with the Tea Party, because the Tea Party has become a very legitimate grassroots movement in this country of people who are disenfranchised. It's largely a libertarian, really libertarian at its heart, but because there's because it's got a lot of power behind it right now, Republicans are trying to align themselves. But you notice that the Tea Party rarely uses the term Republican smartly. So a lot of people are saying, why are they associating themselves with the Tea Party? The real question is, why is the Tea Party associating themselves with some of those elected officials? Well, because it actually hurts their credibility.
Well, we're seeing that in terms of some of the internal fights among the Tea Party groups. Some of them more willing to be associated with Republican politicians and causes than others. But at the same time, it is a two-way street. And so yesterday we had another one of these Tea Party events at the Capitol, a whole litany of Republican members of Congress speaking to this crowd, and in the crowd they're holding, you know, signs that show Obama as Hitler and comparing health reform to the Holocaust. And, I mean, you can't police every sign, but you can decide whether or not you're going to address a group that is holding those signs.
Sure, and you know, we only have 2 parties in this country, and so there's fringe in both parties, and it's always problematic with any of sort of these demonstrations that the media is always going to seek out the worst possible sign that they can and focus on that. So I think we have to be careful not to delegitimize or demonize the Tea Party movement, because I do think that there's it's a large legitimate movement.
But wait, though, you've seen the worst of the Holocaust signs, signs big enough, 2 people are holding them, they're right in front of the podium, and
unconscionable.
If you're a member of Congress and you're stepping up to the podium and that's what's in front of you...
No, I agree. You should disassociate. You should speak out against that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem impossible.
Unconscionable, and irresponsible.
On the issue of health reform, appears to be total unity, no dissent whatsoever among Republicans. Looks like we'll probably will get 0 health reform votes in the House and Senate from Republicans. With events like this one tonight, though, it does seem, and actually with what happened with reading that bill today in the Senate, it does seem like they're trying to turn that opposition into a big political plus. It's not just 0 votes, it's 0 votes and a big campaign against health reform on top of that. How does that work politically?
Well, I think there's some calculation that that they think, at least in the short term for sure, that health care won't have time to be engaged or enacted and applied, really, and it'll be seen as a large government takeover, and it frightens a lot of people, and that there could be real short-term political gain from the passage of that legislation.
Do you if health reform If health reform does say it passes by Christmas, or say it passes by the State of the Union, net gain or net loss, in your view, for Republicans for 2010?
Well, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but it could be a net gain in the short term if it passes. Now, long term, I think it very probably could be a big legislative accomplishment, and it may kick in by the next presidential election. But short term, it could be a liability.
Senator DeMint, I just wanted to ask you about, because I know you've been thinking about him as a potential presidential contender. He seems to be trying
Thanks to you, he's on the watch list.
Oh, good. Well, he does seem to be trying to build his national image